Can I just check you can hear us, Helen?
Yes, I can. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes. Good morning. It's 10 o'clock, and this is the LLR CFA Local Pension Board meeting on the 16th of November of 2023. Welcome to everyone, and welcome to Helen Scargill, who's joining us online. As I understand it, will be presenting the scheme administrators update, which is item 6 on our agenda. But in respect of item 1 on the agenda, I'm going to defer to Akil to administer the appointment of the chairman of this board.
Oh, it's me. Right, good morning, everyone. Can I ask for a nomination for the appointment of chairman?
I'd like to nominate Councillor Bannister.
Adam, do you want to say?
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, you. Bannister, you're.
I take it there are no other nominations. Yes, thank you very much. And obviously I'll accept that appointment. And just for those that do not know me, very brief introduction. Neil Bannister. I am a member of Leicestershire County Council, representing the Broughton Astley division, and I have been elected as a county councillor since May of 2021, and a member, obviously, of the Combined Fire Authority since that time as well. I have recently retired as a Crown Prosecutor with the Crown Prosecution Service. I retired at the end of September this year, and I can say that in the last 6 months or so, my interest in public service pensions has increased a lot as a result of that. So I read these papers with some interest as well. So thank you. Item 2 is apologies. I understand that we have received apologies from Councillor Sue Barton, the Lord Mayor of Leicester, who obviously has other duties and is unable to make this morning's meeting. But I welcome Councillor Melissa March as a substitute for Councillor Barton. So you're very welcome. Thank you very much for coming along as substitute. Item 3 on the agenda are the minutes of the
Chair.
I do apologise. There is one more, isn't there?
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Chair. Graham Vaux sends his apologies, but we have a replacement, Darren Weston.
Darren, thank you for coming along, for Graham. Much appreciated to see you. Item 3 on the agenda, the minutes of the local pension board meeting that was held on the 25th of January. I wasn't there, so for those that were at that meeting, can you confirm that they are an accurate record of what was discussed at that meeting? And
I can confirm that, Chair.
thank you.
I can do fun. Am I allowed to second?
Not sure.
Am I allowed to second?
Technically, no.
Okay, then I won't.
We're running a bit thin on who can. But can I take it that no one has an issue over the content or the accuracy of those minutes? I hear no representations on that, so can we accept those minutes, please? All those in favour, quick show of hands. Thank you very much. Item 4 on the agenda, conflicts of interest. Does anyone around this table have any conflict of interest in relation to any of the reports that we shall be hearing about this morning? I hear none, so we'll move on to item 5, which is the scheme managers update. And this will be presented by Colin Sharp. Is that correct?
That is correct. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Colin. Over to you then.
Okay, thank you. I'll just briefly, I think, introduce the role of scheme manager as well, given that we have a number of new colleagues around the table. So each pension scheme has to appoint a scheme manager to be who's responsible for managing the scheme, basically making sure that all the responsibilities are carried out properly. The the scheme manager in law is the Combined Fire Authority, and the Combined Fire Authority delegates that to a person, which is presently me. So I am referred to as the scheme manager, which for all intents and purposes I am, but actually CFA say holds that responsibility also. I carry this out on the CFA's behalf, and then the local pension board yourselves is really a governance committee, I would say, responsible to the CFA for making sure that you're holding me to account, that you're satisfied that I and my colleagues are doing our jobs properly, that things are going okay, and where they aren't, you're being made aware of that, and that the appropriate action is being taken. And obviously, if you have serious concerns at the board, you might want to set to myself as your scheme manager some actions, but equally you might want to report back to the full CFA as fulfilling your duties from governance perspective to the CFA. So that's just a very sort of quick headline overview of the scheme manager role. I'm employed by Leicester City Council. I'm one of the heads of finance there. And as you'll be aware, Leicester City Council provides the treasurer function to the CFA. And some time ago, I picked up the scheme manager role. So that again is a CFA appointment to name me as a scheme manager. But that's sort of why you've got a scheme manager who works for Leicester City Council.
It's very helpful.
So hopefully you'll have read the report. I'll just pick out some key points if I may. Then obviously we'll be happy to take any questions. So the purpose of the report is to provide an update on the management of the firefighters pension scheme. Obviously, I'm mindful that the board has some new members and indeed some members standing in for the permanent members, with some considerable time elapsed since we actually last met in January. So I've therefore sought to focus the report on looking forward now to deliver the tasks that are in hand, while still providing some background to the Sergeant McLeod remedy and the Matthews on-call retained second options exercise. So, and they are together, of course, with the routine governance reporting I've referred to, such as breaches and scheme manager decisions. The overriding message I think I'd like to get through is of a very high volume of work that officers have to get through by March 2025. Limited skilled staff forces, the national calculator tools and pension statement formats still being developed nationally. Challenges accessing historical pay and tax data going back a good number of years, different payroll providers, different pension administrators, much uncertainty still regards the detail and the possibility of further claims. We currently expect to deliver our part locally whilst keeping the day-to-day show on the road, but I have to point out, recognising the significant risks and uncertainties both nationally and locally, and the pressure on key staff. And I think from a governance perspective, that's probably my key message really to you this morning. Turning then to some of the detail in the report. So the national regulations for both the Sergeant McLeod remedy and Matthews on-call retained second options took effect on the 1st of October. There's an 18-month implementation period, which takes us through to March 2025. So as scheme manager, I'm responsible for ensuring that all of these matters are implemented within the next 17 months now. And therefore, the focus is now firmly on the challenge of delivering both the remedy and the second options. Just as a brief recap, the Sergeant McLeod remedy relates to age discrimination held by the courts to have arisen from the transitional protection arrangements when the career average 2015 scheme was introduced. Older scheme members were allowed to remain in the legacy final salary 1992 or 2006 scheme for a longer period, with some retiring in those schemes on or before the 31st of March 2022. As the younger members were not given the same opportunity to remain in their legacy final salary scheme, this was found to be discriminatory, and hence the remedy process that we found ourselves in. All active scheme members remaining at the 1st of April of 2022 became members of the 2015 scheme from that date, regardless of age or length of service. They will all now have the opportunity to be treated as having remained in the 1992 or 2006 scheme for the remedy period from April 2015 to March 2022, or indeed to choose the 2015 scheme for this period, most will be better off in the 1992 or 2006 final salary scheme, but there are some particular circumstances where people might be better off in the 2015 scheme. This is known as a deferred choice underpin because they won't have to make that choice until they retire, which could be 20, 30 years hence. And they are known as deferred choice members, and you may have seen that underlined in the report together with the immediate choice members. The Matthews second options exercises relates to former certain and retained on-call firefighters who can now fight back 2006 scheme membership from the very start of their service as part-time workers. And as you may have seen in the report, I think Leicestershire Hospital going back, it started in 1965 as a retained firefighter. So this goes back some considerable time, beyond well past when any detailed records will still remain. This promises to be a very significant communications, data collection and data analysis task, and some details given in the report. And moving on to day-to-day, finance and HR teams at Leicestershire Fire and Rescue and West Yorkshire Pensions continue to process the day-to-day pensions work and the gathering and processing of significant volumes of data related to both the remedy and the second options. And as I said, this is an ongoing challenge in terms of staff availability and skills and experience. Just to pull out some other points, in terms of the financial impact upon the Combined Fire Authority, because I think it is helpful, I think, just to highlight this, the payments for remedy and second options will usually be classed as a scheme payment and therefore charged to the pension fund account, which is reimbursed by the government. And we will seek to avoid making any payments that are not able to be charged to the pension account and would therefore fall to the CFA to fund. Whilst employees will pay additional backdated contributions or receive refunds depending on their choices. So a younger member, for example, who was moved into the 2015 scheme between 2015 and 2022 and who decides subsequently to take that period as the 1992 scheme, will be liable to pay backdated contributions because the employee contributions are higher for 1992 and 2015. And similarly, retained firefighters buying back service back to their start date. Obviously, they've never contributed anything, so they will also need to make backdated contributions. However, that does not apply to the employer contributions that the CFA pays. So rather, the pension cost implication, the employer's part of that contribution will increase the future employer contribution rate. So obviously, the CFA pays a percentage for firefighters that are in the pension scheme. That is reviewed nationally every 3 or 4 years, and yeah, the additional employer pension costs of both of these exercises will be picked up on those future funder evaluations. The government committed to fund that increase for next financial year, but there's no commitment at present to fund it on an ongoing basis. So that does represent a risk to the CFA's future budget and indeed to all fire and rescue authorities nationally. And that's something my colleagues will be picking up in the budget setting report that will be coming through to CFA. And obviously additional day-to-day costs are being incurred, meeting staffing and other requirements detailed in this report. So we have got some additional resources in the finance team. I'm obviously employed by the City Council. The City Council is paying for my services. They are more extensive than they would otherwise be if it wasn't for the remedy and second options exercises. And then also the board's also invited to note that there have been no recent updates regards the National Injury to Feelings Awards. I've described in the report broadly what they are, but they arise from the age discrimination and is where scheme members are able to demonstrate that they would have done something differently had the discrimination not occurred at the time, and therefore they incurred financial loss. Pension fund membership, paying off a mortgage. There's a number of potential things that the feelings of distress that could come in there, and that's being determined nationally. And our role, I believe, will be to make payments when that's determined nationally. As I mentioned in the report, the new National Pensions Dashboard is coming in, and that's intended to enable people to find summary details of all their pensions in one place. the deadline for us connecting to that has been extended to October 2026. That really is primarily a role for West Yorkshire. That's Helen's operational problem more than ours, but nonetheless Leicestershire will need to supply any necessary data for that, and obviously it remains the scheme manager's responsibility to ensure that that is done. As I said, I put a few more details of that in the report. It's probably fair to say it won't have that much effect for quite a lot of full-time firefighters. His only pension is probably in the firefighters scheme, but it could certainly impact any firefighters that have occupational pensions elsewhere, or indeed any full-time, whole-time firefighters that have also worked elsewhere and had other pensions. So that's a national exercise. No breaches have been identified, you'll be pleased to know, so there's nothing to report to you in terms of things that have gone wrong or things you would have to report to the pensions regulator. I've taken a number of individual decisions over recent months. I've summarised those in the report. But again, it's good practice for me to draw those to the board's attention so you can see what I've been doing and have the opportunity to ask any questions on those should you wish to do so. And the risk register has been reviewed and updated as well. You may have noted from the papers that unfortunately an older version of the West Yorkshire monthly report and an older version of the risk register are attached to the agenda pack, and I think Democratic Services will be circulating the updated version after the meeting. The changes to the risk register were that I updated it for the fact the national regulations had come into force on the 1st of October with the 18-month implementation period, and there was also a new risk added. It's not a risk as such, but it is on the risk register. A new risk added for the pensions dashboard connection, and also for the injury to feelings claim that we need to have on a radar. So they're the principal additions to the risk register beyond the older version that's with the agenda pack. And yeah, as you've already picked up, Helen Scargill, who's our scheme who works as the lead for the West Yorkshire, is our scheme administrator, and Sean Connor, who's the tri-service advisor for Derbyshire, Nottinghamshire and Leicestershire, employed by Derbyshire, is also here. Obviously, we've got a number of senior officers with us, so hopefully together we'll be able to answer your questions and provide the necessary assurances. What we do is be realistic about the risks, the uncertainty and the amount of work. So, thank you, Chair.
Well, thank you. That was a very comprehensive report, and indeed quite a detailed report that's in the papers. The good news is that the November report has now been received and circulated, and I hope members have had the opportunity to have a quick look at that. That brings us up to date. The report clearly highlights the risks involved with regard to both timescales and the resources that are available to meet those. And it's appreciated that you obviously are highlighting those. I've just got the one question that's in relation to the compensation for injuries to feelings, whether or not any legal advice has been obtained with regard to giving some sort of quantum as to what might be involved with regard to injury to feelings.
But yes, that's a national issue.
Yes.
There has already been agreement what the level of compensation will be. I think currently any delay is due to how many claimants there might be. The good news is Treasury has confirmed that it's not a cost that FRAs will have to foot. Treasury accepts it's a central government cost, although the injury to feelings come from an employment tribunal with regards to a pension scheme. It's not really a pension cost, it's an employer cost, and central government accepts they were the cause of it, if you like. Home offices have confirmed that from a cash flow point of view, services won't be expected to administer the processing of those payments until Home Office have actually given services the money. So there isn't a cost issue, there isn't a cash flow issue, but there is a resource issue because it is quite onerous. But locally, services will simply be told by Home Office what the entitlements are depending on the different variables.
So to some extent that's outside the CFA, that the claimants will be dealing direct with the Home Office, is that correct?
If it's done anything like a very similar exercise with Retained in 2014 was done, then it is Home Office with the employment tribunal and the unions who agree the level of compensation and what the different qualifying criteria might be, and that's done. It still has to be identified who is a claimant. But once that is done, it will be the FRAs who make the payments, but it's only dealing with the resources to make the payments, the actual financial meeting of the cost, that money will be provided by Home Office up front.
Yeah.
But the time it took, it was yet another data exercise, because legally employers can't discuss directly with unions the identity. Also, you have to use a third party intermediary, and that's a good thing legally, but resource wise it just adds time to it.
Yes. You going to make that point?
Well, no, I was going to add more confusion to the point, actually, if I may, which won't be helpful, but it is worth us being cited on it. Is obviously at the moment the word Sean used particularly crucial around who's a claimant and who isn't. At the moment, Fire Brigade Union members have submitted those claims, but there will be another group of individuals that are not part of the trade union membership that haven't been able to submit claims yet. If we're not able, or they're not able to submit those individually, there is potentially another discrimination claim because we're unable to submit a claim because we're not part of a trade union. So there are quite a lot of unknowns still in this. And I thank Sean and Colin for their work on this, because crikey, I wouldn't have been able to do what they've done. And it's good to see it moving forward. But there's an awful lot of uncertainty that we still don't know. And the clock is ticking now of how we implement that.
Yes. And is there a clock ticking for the non-trade union members in terms of getting their claim?
So there, through the National Fire Chiefs Council, there has been some questions raised to the LGA around how individuals are able to register a complaint, a claim for compensation. And there isn't currently a mechanism available to do that. It may come down for individuals to submit a claim individually with support of a solicitor in the background. So it's quite a complex matter at the moment, and we're waiting. Hopefully the LGA will be able to wrap it all up for us and give those individuals a clear route to claim or not, whatever the case may be.
Yeah. Can we be satisfied that the non-trade union members certainly have an awareness of what they should be doing?
Not currently yet, because we're unable to signpost them of how they would be able to submit a claim, or even if they will, they may not be able to.
Yeah. Okay. Oh.
Yeah, just to add slightly, I believe there are also FBU members who did not submit a claim at the time to the FBU, and therefore not, I believe, are not included in the FBUs. So this has the potential to become quite messy. I think this does illustrate a wider point, which is perhaps, again, mindful of new members on the board, worth being aware of, and Sean, not both Sean and the Chief picked this one up there, that the fire pension scheme is a strange arrangement, and that the regulations are very largely set nationally with some local discretions. And all the negotiations take place on all of this matters in this report. The negotiations have all taken place nationally. They've been through court nationally with FBU support. The defence, if you like, has been arranged nationally by fire services and the local government association. All the negotiations take place nationally, but each fire and rescue authority is the employer. So actually, in legal terms, when it comes to scheme members taking action, they take the action against their employer, fire and rescue authority, not against the Home Office. And this may well play out, particularly with the injury to feelings claim, where actually individuals have got to make a claim. We won't go around and identify them all, because they've got to identify they have suffered some loss in legal terms. So actually, yeah, the action of those individuals would come into the Fire and Rescue Authority, to each FRA, and it's something we do toy with this, isn't it? It's helpful in the sense that all these things are coordinated by the FBU and the LGA, and as long as everybody plays to those national agreements, at least we know what we're working towards. It's if anything then does come down to an individual scheme member taking action against an individual FRA, that it could become really messy.
It's extraordinarily complex, isn't it? Yes. Many moving parts.
Indeed.
Yes.
And dare I say, was avoidable.
There it is. We are where we are, isn't it? Well, that's Very good. Thank you very much for that. Melissa, you've got a question or comment?
A question, if I may, Chair, and forgive my ignorance around the CFA and pensions and all the other stuff. It's clear trying to kind of do this data exercise back to 1965 is 3 times over for all the different bits. It's pretty onerous. So, but is that typical? So come March 25, do we all breathe out, or come March 25? Where are we up to? What's the anticipation? Is it a lean in now, or is it this is just how it is?
It is a characteristic of fire pensions. It's the same, and they're always a challenge. So using this as an example, the retained modified scheme,
Yeah.
we thought we'd finish that in 2014. When there was the first exercise for firefighters to buy back to the year 2000, then a judge raised a legal challenge with regards to the judicial officers' pension scheme. Judge O'Brien, so Judge O'Brien won his case and he was able to buy back to when he commenced as a judge in 1978. That had a direct precedent to retained firefighters. So the only constant is change and legal challenge, because pensions is, by the very definition, a lot of it is based around how old you are, and therefore a lot of regulations are written very well intentioned, but then at some point in the future you start to think, is this age discriminatory? And that's just the nature of pensions, that as Councillor Bannister said, there are many moving parts. There are a total of 5 different firefighters pension schemes, different characteristics for different cohorts, which means that there is always potentially a challenge.
Helpful, thank you.
And good luck.
You want to come back?
Yeah, I mean, said I've been around fire pensions. Well, I supported the previous scheme manager, and then I became it. I mean, it is, as Sean says, it just seems to get ever more complicated. We have a task we need to achieve here by March 25 on remedy and the second options exercise. So that's our clear target. Interested feelings will do that. Hopefully that will just be a matter of making payments, but I suspect it'll get more complicated as we discuss. But there's, as Sean says, there's always the potential for more challenge. So, I mean, one that springs to my mind, for example, is once we've done the second options exercise, and sort of current or former on-call firefighters are able to claim a pension. Will there then be a grounds for saying compensation claim there, because had they had the pension when they should have had it, actually they'd have paid off the mortgage, or I don't know, done something differently, and it's sort of, there is this feeling I get that it is sort of never ending. There's always scope for some further claim or challenge on this. So I think we can only work with what we've got, and we've got enough to be working with at the moment for the next 17 months. So yeah. Okay,
thank you. Adam.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Thanks for the report, Colin, as always, comprehensive. Mine in relation to powers 33 and 37. Obviously, you'll be aware, so it's been raised previously with a legacy case that I'm obviously certainly representing on, and that's around. I have a question around paragraph 33 firstly. It talks about the priority that's set out by West Yorkshire Pension Fund, and it looks at deceased members as second in that line of priority. Does that include, was that referring to 2 different members of their schemes?
That's how I start this, and then Sean will come.
Do you want me to continue on my next letter question, or do you want to come back on that first?
I think is your next question about that particular
case? Yes.
Excuse me, Chair, can I just raise a point of order? I'm just a little bit concerned about the use of an individual's name.
I did have a concern about whether or not we should anonymise, if it's possible to do so, or ask in a more general nature, without specifically referring to individual cases.
I understand the point, but I'm just really uncomfortable about use of an individual's name in a public arena.
I'm happy to defer to general consensus, but I think we have raised particular cases before, but I'm happy to defer to general consensus on that.
I mean, I think
cat is out of the bag on this particular one, however.
Are we able to deal with it on the basis of anonymity?
We're not like broadcast now, are we? We could potentially
Yeah.
alter the sound for that individual's names.
Yes,
We
okay,
could blank it out.
yes. All right. But if we can try and be a bit careful as we go forward, to refer to the individual as the individual deceased or whatever. But thank you, Julie, for.
Thank you, Chair.
Oh,
Yes, thank you. Yes, perhaps if I just covered this particular case, this is cases referred to in paragraph 37 as well, and it has previously it's been the subject of lots of correspondence and questioning, including in the House of Commons, where the Loughborough MP asked a question on the matter some time ago of the Fire Minister at the time. So yes, we are very well aware of this particular case, and I think we are all agreed that payment that we should facilitate the remedy choice as soon as we can on this one, and certainly the monitoring officer, the lawyer active to the CFA, myself and others have been progressing this one. So the reference in paragraph 33 doesn't cover this particular case, but we are seeking to progress it as fast as we can. I think it's fair to say. It has its complexities, but we are seeking to do what we can with this one.
Adam, is that all right for you? Do you want to come back at all?
No, that's fine. We are obviously dealing with it outside of of the pension board itself.
Yeah.
I'm aware of some of the complexities and the difficulties that we need to get over, and I think I welcome this, and rightly I think the chief officer's looking to coordinate a round the table meeting with the various stakeholders in that. I just ask that every possible avenue is explored to increase or to speed up the process in relation to this particular case, because it has been going on for quite some time.
I'm sure that so taking note of. Yeah, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions in relation to Colin's report at item 5?
Just one brief comment, if I may. Colin did raise it, but I would like to impress upon the members the capacity required to enact these changes in the timeline is a lot at a time when there's a lot going on within the finance world. We have had some support from government in a grant to bring someone in on a fixed term contract. The workload is steep, and whilst we of course are trying to prioritise it, there are a number of other financial requirements going on within the organisation that also have statutory deadlines. So it's a lot of work for a very small team. And unfortunately, there really isn't a lot of pension experts out there that we can hire on fixed term contracts or get the resources in.
I picked that up from the report. Yeah.
So once again, I will publicly thank Sean and Colin and the finance team for the work they're doing on it, but it's a lot of work in a short space of time, and it's incredibly complex.
Yes. My personal view is that noting that the last pension board met in January, we need to meet more frequently than 10, 11 months ago in order just to receive the updates and see where we are, as we are approaching March 25, which isn't that far away now. Once we turn the calendar in a couple of weeks or so. Right, well, thank you very much. So we'll move on to item 6, the scheme administrators update. This is the report from West Yorkshire Pension Fund, who administers the pension fund for LLR CFA, and welcome and invite Helen Scargill at West Yorkshire Pensions to deliver this report for us.
Thank you. Yeah, so I'll just do a quick bit of background for those of you who don't know me. I'm Helen Scargill. I work for West Yorkshire Pension Fund, and we administer the firefighters pension scheme for soon to be 24 fire authorities. So we administer the kind of lion's share of the fire authority. I personally have worked for West Yorkshire Pension Fund since 1984, so coming up to my 40 years. I also, more recently, I am the technical advisor to the Fire Scheme Advisory Board. I am the chair of the fire technical community, and I also sit on the fire communications group. So the technical community and the communications group are both kind of run through LGA to provide support to all fire authorities and pension administrators in this ever-changing world of fire pensions. More recently, in terms of the age discrimination, I've been attending something called Across Whitehall meetings, which are run by Treasury and have all the public sector schemes affected by discrimination attending, to try and kind of lay the groundwork for the basic principles. I've had meetings with HMRC about the tax changes and for remedy, particularly relating to annual allowance. Just yesterday, I had a meeting with Treasury and DWP on the pensions dashboard, and I'm also part of the Home Office technical working group on Matthews. So try to get in these changes at the start to make sure that they come in as best as possible, given the complexities of everything, to try and kind of put the administrator viewpoint forward, because obviously all these areas they're looking at it at a much higher level, and they don't necessarily realise the impact that certain decisions can have and the workload that brings in. So we try to feed that back to get something that is required legislatively, but we can process in a much more in the easiest manner possible. Not always successful, but we do have a voice. So that's the starting point. So if I just then refer to the report itself is a tad longer than they would normally be because of the length of time since your last board meeting. So I've covered all these external meetings that have occurred since your last meeting. So initially we've got the communications group. So just there's been 2 meetings, one in April, one in September. I've just tried to cover the areas that we discussed, and then, you know, what the end result of those discussions were, in the fact that we've ended up with fact sheets and process guides that have been published by LGA and made available to fire authorities. Again, the same thing I've done with the technical community meetings. We've had a couple of those. Some basic information about the 2 scheme advisory board meetings we've had, one in June, one in September, about the areas that were discussed. West Yorkshire Pension Fund themselves host meetings with all our clients quarterly. So since your last meeting in January, we've had 3 meetings. So the minutes of the first 2 had been completed and signed off and were circulated. I haven't seen the minutes of the 25th of October one just yet. Then as the pensions administrator, we produce a client report each month for each of our clients, detailing what's gone on in the month before. So the November report that you might just have had refers to things that have gone on in October. So we would cover these bulletins at the board meetings, but I don't generally cover them in full. It's more a case of if you've read them and then you want to raise any issues on any areas or ask more questions on any of it, then I'll answer those. But I don't generally go through them on a point by point basis. And there's the same thing with the bulletins. The Local Government Association for Fire create a bulletin every month, and they publish that on the last day of the month. So obviously there's been quite a lot of those produced since your last meeting, and that would be the same thing. It would be for us for you to, if there's any questions coming out of any of the content of that, then I'm perfectly happy to cover any of those and address any of those. As Colin already said, we've had some regulation amendments, new regulations coming in. So we've had the firefighters pensions remediable service regulations, which are the ones that have amended the fire pension regulations. We've had 2 sets of rectification of unlawful discrimination on tax from HMRC, and both of those have come into force specifically because of remedy and what needs to happen to the pensions as a result of remedy. So HMRC have had to make changes to some of their legislation to facilitate what's required. And as Colin also said, we've had the regulations for the on-call, the Matthew second options exercise, and they were laid and came into force 1st of October. We've also, from the Home Office, we got a confirmation letter to say that the care revaluation rate, so when somebody's in the 2015 scheme and they are accruing what is referred to as a care pension, at the midnight on the 31st of March each year, that pension is increased by something called, for the fire scheme, average weekly earnings. And we were informed that Treasury confirmed the incorrect rates for the 21 and the 22 year. So Treasury confirmed what were actually the draft rates. So in 21, they confirmed 2.4% and it should have been 2.6. And in 22, they confirmed 4.1% and it should have been 4.5. Home Office have produced kind of a statement of intent, a guidance note that says that pensions administrators can do calculations including these revised rates before the regulations are actually physically completely amended to show it. But as kind of Colin and everybody have just been saying about the workload at the FRA, this one is just an additional massive increase to our workload at the pensions administrator side, because every single active member who has been in the 2015 scheme during 2021 and 21-22 needs their 2015 care pension kind of rolling back and then reassessing with the new rates added on. We need to do the same for deferred members, and then we need to recalculate the deferred pension. And we also then need, under pensioners, there'll be 2 strands. There'll be those pensioners that are only receiving 2015 pension and are not subject to remedy, in which case we're going to have to look at those on an individual basis and make the amendments to the pension that's in payment to them once the regulations have been changed. And then we've got those who are immediate choice members. So we need to make sure that when we're giving them the 2 options of this is your benefits if you have your remedy period in final salary, and this is your option, these are your benefits if you convert it to the 2015 membership, we've got to make sure that those figures include the increased revaluation rates. So for something that can be kind of described and put in one very short sentence, there is a lot of work involved in making sure everybody's pension records are correct. And obviously, because this error is to the member's detriment, it has to be done, because we have to make sure that every member is in receipt of the right amount of pension. I think if it had been the other way around, the Home Office would have written it off and the members would have just had the benefits that we'd calculated on the incorrect rates. But because it's not, we've got to put everything right. again, I know that there was a quick mention of pension dashboards and the fact that the kind of backstop date when everybody has to be connected has been pushed back to 2026, and there'll be guidance coming out, I think, in the spring as to when public sector schemes will their suggested connection date is. Now, even though the deadline date's been pushed back, we've still been continuing to work to our original kind of programme project plan for dashboards. So we've actually now appointed the integrated service provider who, as it says in there, will provide cloud-hosted services connected to the dashboard technology ecosystem. Please do not ask me any questions on that, because that is the sum total of what I know. I don't really, well, my basic understanding is West Yorkshire Pension Fund have all the pension records, and they have all the figures that anybody who signs up to the dashboard and connects would want to see. So then there's going to be a number of dashboard providers for members where they'll sign up, but what the data has to get from our system to the dashboard for the member to view, and for that it goes through this this cloud hosted service, and so that's who that's the part we've got in place now. So obviously then we'll be looking at exactly how the data is going to go through, and to make sure that the data going through is as accurate as it can be, and it's and we're hitting all the kind of time frames for that. But the first stage is in, so that's good. And then just on there, just some more general points in terms of the Leicestershire Fire Authority, through their payroll provider, send West Yorkshire what we refer to there as monthly returns, and that's basically an extract file of every member that's in the pension scheme, and it tells us the pay and the pension contributions for the month, and we then upload that onto our system so that we've got up-to-date records, and that also creates any new joiners to the pension scheme as well who are on that return. So I'm just confirming here that we've posted up to, at the point of writing this, we've posted up to August, so that was completely in line with all the time frames. So in 2022 we had quite a lot of problems with the month 12 return, which is the return that gives us the data to produce annual benefit statements. March 23's return was much improved, and we had a much lower number of queries than we did for 22. As I've put there, we did have some issues with the timeliness and quality of the responses for some of the areas of issue, but only in a very minor scale. It wasn't big numbers, and I did do some work with that, and responses are coming from the payroll provider in a much more timely manner now. So also there, I'm confirming that for annual benefit statements, which are the pension statements for active members, we produced 100% for your active members by the 31st of August deadline. Once annual benefit statements are created, that process does a check on pensions growth for the annual allowance growth, and Leicestershire had 21 members where they'd possibly breached the standard 40,000 annual allowance limit, and legislation says that anybody that is a potential breach needs to have something called a pension savings statement, and that has to be sent by the 6th of October of the relevant year. So I'm just confirming here that all 21 did receive their letters, so that overriding time frame was met. And then just a little bit on kind of where we are in terms of the impact of the regulations amendments from the 1st of October. So we are able to provide pension estimates. We will supply them for anybody thinking of retiring in the next 12 months, and anybody that asks for an estimate will get both their choices under the deferred choice option. At the moment, there's a delay in providing the estimate figures because we're still just finalising the process of the amendment to the calculation and the statements. But as soon as we're expecting that to be completed in the next week or so, and then we'll start on clearing any backlogs. But if you do have anybody that is thinking about retiring within the next 12 months, if you can just ensure that they do get an estimate first. So then in terms of retirements of anybody from the 1st of October, we are doing their calculations under the legislation. They are receiving both their options and they are able to make their choice in accordance with the legislation. And then just something that was just hopefully a bit helpful. So when the regulations came into force on the 1st of October 23, that automatically rolled back active and deferred members from the 2015 scheme into their legacy scheme for their remedy period. So following on, because they're then now treated as having that 7-year period in their final salary scheme, the annual allowance that was originally calculated from 2015-16 onwards has to be reassessed, and revised pension saving statement or remedy pension saving statements, or whatever phrase we're going to give to them, has to be they have to be recalculated and the statement sent to members by the 6th of October next year. So that's something that we'll be doing over the course of the next few months. But for pensioner members, anybody that's retired before the 1st of October, they don't automatically roll back, and their rollback doesn't actually occur until they make their election under immediate choice. So that will happen on an individual basis between now and the 31st of March 25. And at that point, if their choice affects annual allowance, then that will be reassessed and they'll have to make the appropriate decisions on any impacts of that change. And then I've just the local government association, the LGA, produced some warm-up letters for everybody affected by remedy, just to kind of let them know what the next step was likely to be and what the time frame for that next step was going to be. So West Yorkshire sent them out to all active, deferred and pensioner members, apart from the any pensioner member who retired ill health and had some 92 membership. So they are either retired after the 1st of April for 2015 as a member of the 92 scheme, or they've retired from the 2015 scheme with previous 92 membership. And we haven't sent those letters because there are different stages and different things that need to be happening about those members, and we don't know that information. So those remaining letters are the responsibility of the FRA. And the letter, if it hasn't been sent already, needs to be sent by the 31st of December 23 to meet overriding disclosure legislation. So obviously inactives, deferreds and ordinary pensioners and anybody who retired ill health from the 06 scheme, they've had their letters and that disclosure legislation has been met. So, and then the last part of this report is kind of your latest on the data improvement plan or your data scores. Every October, November, you have to report something called data scores to the pensions regulator as part of an annual return that includes other things. So that is just your kind of the current position, and compared to other FRAs, that's a very healthy position in comparison. So there is enough. I look at these reports 2 or 3 times a year and do any update that where the error is showing that there's kind of data mismatch on member records or something. So we'll get all those cleared. Pretty much the ones that are left are either things that we can't do or things that have no impact on member benefits, and anything, or the pension that's in payment. But they're very healthy scars. So that is the end of my report. If anybody has any questions on anything.
Thank you very much, Helen. That's very much appreciated. And first of all, can I congratulate you on your impending 40th anniversary in West Yorkshire?
Thank you.
I think, certainly from my vantage point, we must be very fortunate to have your considerable expertise built up over that period of time. So look forward to maybe a piece of cake next.
Yeah.
Point.
Yeah. Just to say, I started when I was 4.
Your report certainly serves as a reminder about the great care, if not forensic examination of the changes in the regulations that are taking place. So thank you for reporting on that. In respect of the report itself, obviously, I note with gratitude no breaches on the overriding disclosure time limits. And I also note the big improvement that you have said in relation to the month 12 returns, which is making the issue of the annual pension statement much more timely, which I know would be much appreciated by the beneficiaries. The one question I have in respect of the November report, there's a little section there on ill health, and you've highlighted ill health retirement medical certificates. Half of them, 50%, are not correct. And of course, the number 50%, it appears to be, to me, a large percentage. In terms of individuals, is there quite a number of individuals, or is it a very small sample which has made up that high percentage? And I would hope that, small or large, that what you say in relation to the medical certificates not being correct is going to be filtered down so that we can get that correction sorted.
So I suspect it is a reasonably small sample, probably 10. I think is the norm for the auditor. And within that sample, I don't actually know if there were any Leicestershire cases. So it may be that either you haven't had any ill health to cause a problem, or you did have ill health and we did get the correct certificates and they were correctly completed, and we were awarding the correct benefit on the basis of that certificate. But yes, I mean, the FRA's concerned should know, because obviously at the time we've had to go back and request the certificate from the correct scheme, or to ask them to convert to go through and say that, you know, you're saying that it's a higher tier ill health, but the medical certificate don't back it up, or vice versa, that they could be saying that could be informing us it's a lower tier ill health, but actually when we have a look at the certificate, it looks like they've answered it to pay a higher, and so there's any number of things, and sometimes they're just old certificates, because FRAs are not going onto the website and just pulling the latest certificate off for cases. As we all do, at some point in the past, they've taken a copy of the certificate and then they're just pulling that copy out and using it without checking if it's still the most recent. So there's kind of different strands where it could go wrong. But if it has been Leicestershire, then certainly there will have been correspondence about those individual cases. But it is just more of a global reminder that the responsibility for ill health and the whole process up to the point of the pension being paid lies with the fire authority, and it's their responsibility to ensure that the process is followed correctly, the correct forms are completed by the IQMP, and then on receipt of those forms, they are happy that everything appears correct with the forms to notify us of the correct reason for retirement. So from that, it's just it could be for yourselves. It's just a reminder to make sure that you have got all those steps in place and that everything is being followed as it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think Colin in the room is going to help me as well on this one.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, this was raised on the recent client call. So West Yorkshire hosts, I think it's quarterly, a call for all their 20 officers and their 25 clients to join. So sort of lead finance and HR people for pensions join that. I try and join it from available, which I did last time. Yes, and this is one of the things raised on that call. And I think it's Helen says it's because a number of different bits of the fire side are involved in this, and some may regard the medical certificates or the records as confidential, not to be shared, etc. There's been some mismatch in what actually finds its way through to West Yorkshire. I'm not aware of any problems at Leicestershire, but I did ask the finance and HR colleagues here just to make sure that we have got our proper processes in place. So I will after that client call a couple of weeks ago. So I will just follow that up internally just to make sure that we're comfortable that even if it has happened there, and I don't know that it won't happen, that we've got our processes in place for the future.
Yeah, well, that's good. It'd be useful to know if there is any LLR cases. Thank you. Does anyone else have any questions or comments for Helen? I don't see any hands going up. Well, thank you very much, Helen. Looks like you're spared any more questions or comments from us. But
thank you.
Appreciate very much your contributions this morning, and we can let you lead the meeting if you so wish. We're almost at the end of the agenda, but the next item is the employee representations, and you're very welcome to offer anything if you wish at this stage.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. It was raised in the Scheme Managers.
Yes, you did. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that covers off item 7 then on the agenda. Moving on to item 8, which is the date of the next meeting. It has been suggested that will be on the 31st of January. Unfortunately, I'm in Parliament all day on the 31st of January. So with your indulgence, I'd like to move it back. I appreciate everybody's busy diary commitments. Can we go back a week? Is that possible?
We'll
We'll find a date.
As reasonably near to that date if possible. So I'm grateful to the board to indulge me on that one. I would very much like to be present at the next board meeting. And that brings us to item 9, which is any other business. Does anybody around the table, or even indeed Helen, I see you still there. Any other business? I see no hands being raised, so that deals with item 9, and I think that will be the end of this board meeting. So again, thank you all very much for your attendance and your contributions.